you all very much for coming. I'd like to thank especially the residents of Holland Bukit Timah GRC, in particular, someone who has really given his life for serving the people of Singapore, the former MP for Ayer Rajah, Dr. Tan Jane Bok, one of our constituents. Friends and fellow Singaporeans, I want to thank you all for supporting us through the last 9 days. It has been really heartwarming, from the house visits, to the market visits, to the interaction at rallies, and to all your messages. I'm grateful for all the expressions of support I've received from so many of you. In particular, I'm grateful to all the volunteers, operations, logistics, and IT people who have put together this amazing campaign. I think it's quite universally acknowledged that given the limited resources, the SDP has the best run campaign this election season. Don't you agree? There are too many to name, but if you look at the AV tent, the people manning barricades, the merchandise stall, you know who I mean. Go up to them and say, thank you for standing up for democracy in Singapore. I'd like to begin my speech proper by addressing some of the issues raised yesterday by our worthy opponents from the PAP. Now at the start, I'll say I'm proud that we have fought a clean and fair campaign this year. But please do not boo our opponents. If you really don't like them, just put a cross next to the rocket. That sends a much more powerful message. The PAP candidates are also Singaporeans who want to do something for Singapore. In fact, Ms. Sim Ann's husband is a doctor and a friend of mine. Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan was my senior in medical school, and we had a memorable inter-class debate when he was in final year and I was in second year. I'm not going to tell you how that debate turned out. But this time round, as he correctly pointed out, we're dealing with something a lot more important than a debate trophy. We're dealing with the issues that matter to Singaporeans, the direction in which our country is going to go, and whether the momentum built up from that watershed general election of 2011 can be carried forward to a more open, transparent, and accountable Singapore, or whether we'll regress again to a de facto one-party state. In this slide, I was quite sad to read on the front page of the newspaper that Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan viewed opposition parties as intruders, trying to barge into the home that is occupied only by the PAP and the voters, whom he described as a married couple. I disagree. Singapore does not belong to the PAP. Singapore belongs to all Singaporeans, including the 40% of us who voted for the alternative parties in 2011, and the maybe 45% of us who will vote for the alternative parties on Friday. We are all Singaporeans, regardless of our political affiliation. We in the SDP will serve all our constituents if elected, including those who voted against us. As Dr. Chi said earlier, we have always believed in Singapore and in Singaporeans, even though you haven't elected any SDP candidates since 1991. We don't go around putting down Singaporeans, unlike some other political parties. As I told the Prime Minister during the IPS forum, when he alleged that Israelis are smarter than Singaporeans, I disagree. I think that Singaporeans are smarter than Israelis. At least we know how to live in peace with our neighbors. Tonight I would like to issue a special thank you to the PAP Holland Bukit Timah team. And let me explain why. When we started this campaign, we found that less than 10% of voters knew anything about our SDP policies. Although we held public discussions, we published drafts and final versions on our website, it seemed like the average Singaporean had no idea about any of our policies. The mainstream media never covered them, and with only one exception, and that was a forum organized by Professor Tommy Koh, we could not get any PAP leaders to debate them at all. If we wanted to send out mailers to everybody in the district, it would have been really expensive. And you know there are more than 100,000 voters in Holland Bukit Timah. Now, we discovered something. In the last 2 days, every single household in Holland Bukit Timah has been provided with a document entitled Hard Truths About SDP's Policies. Funny, right? This contains 2-line summaries of some of our major policies in healthcare, housing, and the economy. And it's only missing the details of our town council management policy because maybe they couldn't download it in time. We are very grateful to the PAP for disseminating this information to every household in Holland Bukit Timah. Something we could never have afforded to do on the limited budget that we have here at the SDP. Thank you, Dr. Vivian, Ms. Sim, and company. Having said that, I would like to correct some misconceptions in the flyer. Firstly, as I mentioned earlier, Singapore's tax system is not really fair because the rich don't have to pay any estate duty, any capital gains tax, whereas the poor have to pay GST, even on the water conservation tax. They pay tax on tax. DPM Tharman is taking steps to make this a bit more progressive by raising taxes on the top 5% of income earners in Singapore, which is only very slightly different from our plan, which is why he is our favorite minister. Secondly, as former GIC Chief Economist, Mr. Yo Lam Keong has pointed out, the SDP's housing and healthcare plans can be financed without increasing the tax on the middle class by a more transparent accounting and tax structure. Thirdly, the flyer argues for keeping the CPF minimum sum. Now you know this figure will rise every year until 2020 when I turn 55, and it will be $90,500. For most Singaporeans, that's a significant amount of money. It's a hardship having all that money locked into CPF while the cost of living keeps rising. We believe that Singaporeans should be treated like adults. We know what to do with our own CPF money. In any case, the government is not going to bail us out, the handful of irresponsible seniors who waste their CPF money on wine, women, and karaoke. Fourthly, and more importantly, the flyer claims that the current 3M system works well for healthcare financing, and also that 2-bedded wards are wasteful. I am an infectious disease physician, and I can tell you, in a world with SARS, MERS, multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, we are indeed taking some risks and putting huge stresses on our staff by keeping the large 6 and 8-bedded wards that we have. It is only the hard work and diligence of our nurses, our doctors, and our epidemiologists who prevent outbreaks of deadly infectious diseases in our local hospitals. For the 3 M's, thanks to a parliamentary question in 2013, we now know that of the total of $13 billion of national healthcare expenditure, government subsidies account for about $4 billion. The 3 M's of Medifund, Medisave, and Medishield account for only $1.1 billion, leaving the rest, that's about $8 billion, as out-of-pocket expenditure or employer-funded health insurance. That is simply not sustainable. $8 billion a year out-of-pocket expenditure or employer-funded healthcare insurance. It hurts the SMEs and it hurts the people of Singapore. The flyer also claims that universal health insurance undermines personal responsibility. Now that's very easy for you to say in the ivory tower. The reality is, no matter how hard you try to stay healthy, your genes and your environment are beyond your control. So we feel it's not morally right to punish people for being sick. Fifthly, the flyer claims that a non-open market housing system will penalize homeowners who are trying to monetize their flats. Again, I think they're not clear on the concept. Most of us only own one apartment. That is the apartment in which we grew up, our children grow up, and we want to retire. It is not for speculation or asset enhancement. It is a home. If we want to upgrade to private housing, then we should not profiteer from our home. Why don't we just sell it back to the HDB so that a young couple can have the same opportunity to live the same dreams that we did? Sixthly, and this is very interesting, the PAP Holland Bukit Timah team claims the credit for a new polyclinic and MRT line. Now all of us know that the MRT is not owned by the PAP. Polyclinics will be built regardless of who is in charge of the ward. As I said yesterday, the PAP is neither all-powerful nor is it evil. The taps will still run, the traffic lights will still work, the lifts will still go up and down, and the trains will still break down regardless of who is the MP. Our Singapore civil service is professional, competent, and non-partisan. To suggest otherwise is to insult them. Seventhly, they argue against the minimum wage, using a slightly xenophobic argument that we should not pay our foreign domestic workers more. Now, you know, the highest taxes in Singapore are paid by our domestic workers. Yes, more than 1/3 of the total amount paid by employers goes into the foreign domestic worker levy, which is a form of tax. 33% is a higher tax rate than any playboy billionaire pays in Singapore. We argue that this levy should be scrapped. The money should be paid to the domestic worker herself, so that the people who do the most important things for us, who look after our children, our elderly parents, while cooking for us and cleaning our homes, should be paid a decent salary. Finally, there's the issue of the defense budget, which has come up in so many conversations, both online and offline. We had proposed reducing the defense expenditure to fund healthcare financing. This has been controversial, and like all our other policies, we are pleased that discussion has been stimulated. Some proposals have included smart defense spending with more transparency and accountability, reviewing costly programs like the F-35, you know, the fighter plane that apparently cannot fight. Other options include the out-of-the-box suggestion of incorporating healthcare expenditure in the defense budget on the grounds that protecting Singaporeans from cancer is at least as important as protecting them against terrorism. Furthermore, according to the World Bank, under Finance Minister Tharman, the Singapore defense budget has decreased from 3.4% of GDP in 2010 to 3.2% of GDP in 2014 without any significant compromise of Singapore's security. So I think there should be a healthy debate among Singaporeans on what is the best way to prioritize spending that promotes the well-being of Singaporeans without compromising the safety and security of our borders. The debate on the defense budget brings into focus the wider issues of the SDP policies in general. The SDP is fielding only 11 candidates this election. There is no way that we can form the government and implement any of these policies. They will all be voted down by the PAP party whip, even if we propose them as bills in Parliament. We would like to use the policies based on international best practices as benchmarks to hold the government accountable. And that is the role of a responsible, competent, constructive, and compassionate opposition party, which the SDP promises you that we will be. We ask you to hold us accountable. We will have regular meetings with our constituents where you can bring up issues and use our own policies to see whether we walk the talk. We will modify our policies if the situation changes or if there's significant feedback from the people who put us in Parliament. Why then do you need our policies in Parliament? You have seen for yourselves how the government has become more sensitive to the gaps in social spending and income inequality after the 2011 election. The PAP MPs who dominate the chamber are very talented individuals. Many of them are scholars with outstanding track records in public service. But what is missing in the PAP? You're right, it was actually highlighted during a recent debate organized by Viswa Sadasivan, his website, Inconvenient Questions. The audience was asked, what was their wish for those in government? And one of the participants said, and this was interesting, she said she wished that they would dress down in disguise and live among the ordinary people for 1 or 2 weeks. Don't you agree? Good idea, right? I agreed with her. In fact, I have a standing offer to any senior officer I meet. I tell them, disguise yourselves as one of the junior college students that I take on my job shadowing while I'm doing rounds at any random date, and follow me on a ward round in a C-class ward in any public hospital. I guarantee these officials that what they experience will speak much more to them than any of the statistics and papers that their staff officers generate from them. This is what the people want from their leaders. Not to come around once every 4 or 5 years and ask them how they're doing, shake their hand, ask them to vote for them. This is what we in the opposition live through every day. I am probably the only one in the SDP slate of candidates who comes from the senior ranks of academia or public service. And my excuse is that I still do rounds on C-class wards on a regular basis. During my leave from the hospital these 3 weeks, however, I have continued to encounter people in need. One such person I encountered yesterday during a walkabout at Adam Road Food Centre. She's a retired teacher and she knew our family well. So she asked me, why are you doing this? I thought she was a PAP supporter and asking me why I didn't join the PAP. I said to her, it was because of the people I encounter every day in the hospital who enjoy good medical care but struggle to pay the bills. I told her that it probably didn't apply to her, that she had the CSC card, they call it the gold card, and that she's a Division 1 pensioner. But she stopped me and she related her experience. I knew that she had cancer, but she told me that she needed a special kind of medical device that was not covered by the CSC card, and it had to be imported. So that meant that every month she had to pay more than $1,000 in cash. So she's 80 years old and retired. She asked the hospital for help, and they suggested that she go and see her MP. So she went to see her MP in the now defunct booming Kallang GRC to ask for a discount. She didn't get to see the MP, but the official who saw her apparently told her that she should sell her house and downgrade to an HDB flat. That was her reaction. She was indignant She said she was 80 years old and had lived in that simple house since the day she was married. She told me she walked out of the room in despair, and she encouraged me to continue speaking up for the voiceless, the elderly, the poor, and the sick. That is what this election is about. Singaporeans who are not scholars or successful entrepreneurs, it's about those of us who are not the natural aristocrats. The Prime Minister made an unprecedented apology in Boat Quay in 2011. I was listening yesterday to see whether he'll make another one, he didn't. It's time to look objectively at the promises that were made as part of that apology. Ask yourself, are your children less stressed by the education system? Are you spending less on tuition and childcare? Are the trains less crowded? Are you more able to pay for healthcare for yourself and your parents? Are you more secure that your job will not be taken away from you and given to someone who's willing to work for less? If the answer to any of those questions is no, then we still need more alternative voices in Parliament to provide independent checks on our government. More than that, we need voices with values. We in the SDP believe in you, the people of Singapore. We believe that people are more important than profits. Many of you feel disempowered. You're afraid of speaking up every day. You're worried that your boss or somebody else will tekan you or will mark you. On Friday, you have a chance. It comes only once every 4 or 5 years. You have a chance to speak up and let your voice be heard. You have a chance to show the government that the people should not be afraid of the government. The government should be afraid of the people. In the sanctity and in the secrecy of the ballot booth, you can make a choice. You can send a powerful message. Please vote for us so that we can be your voice in Parliament. Thank you.